my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and these are the hottest Golden Age comics for the week. This is going to be a pretty great list. There's some pretty cool books on this list, and we're going to start out with a very cool book, which is number 10 on the list, Black Rider number 8, also known as Black Rider number 1, because I don't know why they started with the numbering of 8, but that's what they started with. And this is from Timely 1950. But the cool thing is it's a photo cover. And normally people don't like photo covers, but this is a very special photo because it is Stan Lee, who was in the role of Black Rider. He's wearing a mask, but it is Stan Lee on the cover. And it makes it the first cover appearance of Stan Lee in comics. So kind of a fun book that collectors seek just for the Stan Lee cover appearance. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $899. Now that's a pretty big sale because back in May of 2016, this book had sold for $653.40. However, in June of 2022, there was a 5.5 that sold for $396. So this is like 2 times what the higher grade 5.5 had sold for. So just a really cool book. The interesting thing about this one is there's only 47 on the census. Of that 47, 26 are universal graded copies and 20 are signed. And they're mostly signed by Stan Lee. So very fun photo cover with a nice little piece of history there. Number 9 is 4-Color 108. And this is a Dell Comics from 1946. It's a Carl Barks story interior. But the cover is done by Carl von Buettner. It features a story, Donald in the Terror of the River. And it's just a classic Donald Duck cover comic. This was a pretty big sale. This was for a 9.0, and it sold for $1,200. Now, the interesting thing about this is actually a steal of the week. This is my steal of the week because this book back in January of 2006 had sold for $2,300. Even as recently as November of 2018, this book had sold for $1,900. I'm not sure why it's been on this sort of downward trend, but this was very much a steal because this is way under even the most recent sale for this book. There are 164 copies of this on the census, and 155 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Normally with these Disney comics, when they're in super high grade like this, they can sell for quite a lot of money. Usually anything above a 6.0 is kind of my threshold that I look for in those early Donald Duck or Disney related comics. This was just one that didn't perform that well. Partly probably because there are so many on the census. 164 is quite a large census count. Because usually with the Disney related comics, they only get them graded when they are of high value or of a noteworthy cover. Usually a Carl Barks cover, they'll get graded. So this one has a lot graded, and that could be part of the reason why it's going down in price. Number 8 on the list is Teenage Temptations number 1. This is from St. John's Publication, 1952. It's a Matt Baker cover with this beautiful girl getting out of a car, and the guy's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm not such a bad guy. You're the one that gave me your number, so you're not so good either." It's like it's got that sordidness to it. St. John has a lot of really interesting romance books and with very sordid stories in them. This was a 6.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,999. This is the highest end only sale for this grade. So it's really hard to figure out whether or not this was a good price or a bad price. However, what we can do is we can look at another copy which had sold in a 5.0 that sold back in August of 2022, and it sold for $960. So based on that, this book should be around, or would have sold back then for around $1,248. So this $12.99, probably within what you would expect the price to be for this book. Not up, not down, just sort of flat. But Matt Baker is really hot right now, and this was probably a pretty good book to pick up, because the prices for Matt Baker covers have really gone up, and I'm seeing more and more listings nowadays that feature Matt Baker art. And that is one of those things you got to be wary of, because what often they're talking about is interior art by Matt Baker. And then Matt Baker did a lot of interior comics, art for interior of comics. Jumbo is a good example. Now, Jumbo comics, for the most part, are fairly inexpensive. And and he didn't do the covers, he just did the interior art. And really, when the prices of a lot of these books where it's the artists that people are seeking, they're really going after that cover art. So be wary. Make sure that it's actually a Matt Baker cover, because you'll see very often on listings nowadays where they'll say Matt Baker art, and that generally refers to interior. So just something to be wary of. There are 20 of these on the census, and 20 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Marvel Mystery Comics number 34. This is from Timely, 1942. It's an Alex Schomburg cover, and it's a really great one. It's a really cool cover. You got Toro, and he's like chained up and being lowered, kind of lowered into this like well, and it has like these drills like coming at him from all different directions. And then you have these kind of monster-like bad guys who have like these like laser guns with and it's labeled, because Alex Schomburg would always like label like things within the picture, so you could read, oh, this is like blah blah blah, and in it says anti-flame ray. You know, that's because all bad guys need to have an anti-flame ray if they're going to go up against the Human Torch. So it's just a really, really cool cover. This was a 3.5 restored copy that sold, and it sold for $1,947.49. This is kind of an unusual price for this book. Actually, this book in the same grade and restored copy had sold back in August of 2023 for $2,040. So this is actually down from its peak price for this restored grade. However, there was a blue label 4.5, which is a full grade point higher, and a blue label that sold for $2,280 in November of 2023. And I believe that might have kind of negatively impacted the price of this one. Because if you do the per point math and think of it as a blue label, you would have expected this book to sell for around, as a blue label, for around $1,773. So this was actually $200 above the last sale for a blue label, based on per point grade system here. So actually not a bad price that the seller got for this book. You know, this is one of those ones where it's really, you got to do a lot of math to figure out, is it a good price? Is it not a good price? And in this case, I would say the seller got a reasonable price for it. These Timely Alex Schomburg covers are really hot right now. No pun intended with the Human Torch, but it's just, they're really, really popular right now. So we're talking about hot artists. Matt Baker, Alex Schomburg is the other one. There are 61 of these on the census, and 53 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Another Alex Schomburg comic is next. It's number 6 on the list, and it's All Select Comics number 1. Now, this is Timely 1943. As I said, it's a classic Alex Schomburg cover with Captain America, Human Torch, and Submariner on the cover. And they're in giant format. They're huge looking, and they're attacking this Nazi castle fortress. And it's just a great one. You got Submariner, like he's like lifting up the drawbridge. It's just really cool comic. This was a pretty big sale because it was a very low grade. This is probably the lowest grade comic you will see on this list for a while. Because this was a 0.5 green label. And it sold for $2,076.51. The reason it's a green label and 0.5, because usually 0.5 means that there's something missing, and usually you just get a blue label but green. Okay, like a blue label but a 0.5. But this is a 0.5 green label. So what does that mean? Well, this book is one that is missing the back cover. It's got all the internal pages, but it's missing the back cover. And it has a married front cover. So probably what happened was somebody got a coverless copy of All Select Comics number 1, and they took some front page that they found somewhere else, and they married the two. And usually the way that they can detect if it's a married cover is just by staple, where the staple placement is. And if it doesn't line up, then they say, oh, it must be married. So this is one where it's a married cover, therefore it gets the green label. This was a reasonably big sale because there was a blue label 0.5 that sold back in August of 2019 for $2,000. So this, usually what I say green label versus blue label is if you take the blue label price, and if it's a green label, then you take it and chop it in half. So generally a blue label will go for a lot less than a green label, so about half. In these lower grades, like where it's like a 0.5, it's more iffy. People are a little bit more forgiving, but still I usually use that rule of thumb that if it's a green label, take the blue label's price and divide it by 2. So this was a great price, is my point. There are 101 of these on the census, and 69 of them are universal blue labels. Number 5 on the list is another great comic. It is Planet Comics number 58. This is from Fiction House 1949. It's a Joe Doolin cover. Now this one, actually, this is where I was mentioning about Matt Baker. So Matt Baker did some interior art in this book. And if you looked at the original listing for this Planet Comics 58, it actually mentions Matt Baker art. Now it doesn't say Joe Doolin cover, it just says Matt Baker art. So bit of a, play on what is hot right now. This is an iconic cover. It was actually redone by Dave Stevens later on. It is just a classic, sci-fi good girl art cover with the girl on the rocket. Now this was actually a bit of a steal as well. So we actually have 2 steals on the list. This was an 8.5 that sold, and it sold for $2,324.99. Now the reason I'm saying it's a steal, well, back in April of this year, the same grade, I'm not sure if it's the same book, but same grade, sold for $3,299. So this is down almost $1,000 from the prior record, which was set earlier this year. I'm not sure why it dropped so much. It just did. I don't know what to say. But this is a classic cover. Planet Comics is one of those great sci-fi comics from the Golden Age. And I think somebody just got a steal. This was just one of those steals of the week. There's 96 of these on the census, and 94 of them are universal blue labels. Number 4 on the list was a Heritage Auctions. This was Thrilling Comics number 41. This is from Better Publishing. It's from 1944. It's an Alex Schomburg cover again. It's a Gerber 7, which means that it's very, very rare, scarce, I should say, scarce. It actually has the record for the most swastikas on a cover of either a comic or magazine. And the reason for that is it's got the Hitler in a bed, and the bed sheet, the quilt on top is all swastikas. So it just has just a sheer number of swastikas, and it's a classic cover. It's got Hitler hiding behind the blanket, and you got Mussolini underneath the bed, which makes it extra funny. Just classic propaganda anti-Hitler cover from the World War II, which gives it a lot of things that people collect. Now this was a Heritage auction sale, and it was a raw 1.8, and it actually looks much higher grade than that. I'm not sure why they labeled it at 1.8, but it sold for $2,880. Now, it presents really, really well, as I said, but if you look at the back cover, it looks like there's a lot of water damage on the back. A lot of the ink has been like kind of washed out, and it looks like it has severe water damage. So it could be a risky book to buy, actually. The front cover looks great. Back cover looks very washed out. And that's probably why they graded it as a 1.8. But for somebody who's buying it for the cover, it might be a pretty good deal because it will present quite well. Now, this was, I have a bit of a, the sale that we have to compare to it is actually my own personal sale. I actually bought this same comic in a 2.0 for $2,400 from my comic shop. So the closest sale to this one was a 2.0, and that's a graded 2.0. So this was a very strong sale for a 1.8 ungraded copy at $2,800. So about almost $500 above the 2.0 sale, the graded 2.0 sale. So interesting, pretty hot book actually, because it's just a classic Hitler cover. There are 46 of these on the census, and 38 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Detective Comics number 76. This is from December of 1943. It's actually a really weird cover. You got this giant flower where the Joker is coming out of it, and he's kind of spraying this gas onto Batman and Robin, who have a giant pair of scissors, and they're trying to cut the flower with this giant pair of scissors. Just a really wacky cover. And this comic was actually from the DC Universe collection. So extra little provenance behind this book. However, this was a really high-graded, restored copy. Now, a lot was done to this book. It has like moderate level of restoration, but semi-professional. So 9.0 restored for $2,885. Also, I should mention that it's a Jerry Robinson cover, and this is the only sale for this book. So you can't really compare it to anything because there's nothing to compare it to. However, there was a blue label that sold in a 9.2 for $20,000 and $20,400 in September of 2022. Now, typically, when you have the high grade restored, like very high, like in the 9s, you're only going to get about 10% of that high grade value. So if you get a 9.2, well, the 9.0 would probably sell for around like maybe 10 to 15,000, give or take. So you expect this one to sell for around maybe $1,000 to $2,000 range. So in that range. So at $2,800, that's a really strong sale. You would actually expect this to be equivalent to a 4.5 price. So that's the question. Which would you rather? A high grade restored, like a 9.0 restored copy, or 4 or 5 blue label, universal blue label. I want to put that out to you guys. Which would you rather? Would you rather the 9.0 or would you rather the 4.5? Which would, both are about the same price. So there's 94 of these on the census, and 74 of them are universal blue labels. It's just a cool comic, great grade, but restored. Number 2 on the list is the Human Torch number 5. It's also number 4. I think it was like one of those ones where it's mislabeled. This is from Timely, 1941. Again, another Alex Schomburg cover. And this one is interesting because you got just a great war scene going on. You got this huge cannon in the distance that's shooting this shell. It's called the super shell. It's like, because Alex always labels all these, even the bombs get labeled. So it's labeled super shell. And you got, is it Submariner? Submariner on the other beach. And he's like fighting against all these guys that are coming. Just a great war cover. Lots of Nazis on it cover. And that's what kind of makes this a popular cover. This was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $3,999. This is just a massive sale. The last time that this book had sold was back in October of 2021 for $1,368. So about a third of the price. So it's gone up 3 times in 2 years. That's a pretty massive sale. There are 79 of these on the census, and 64 of them are universal blue labels. Number 1 on the list is one that's been on the list before, and it's a great comic. This is Superman number 6 from December of 1940. It's a Joe Shuster cover. It's a classic Superman posing cover where he's posing on a yellow background. And these yellow Superman covers just, I don't know, something about them really pops. Just a great cover. Now, inside this book, there's a half-page ad for All-Star Comics number 1, which is another slightly collectible reason for this book. But the other thing that's really interesting about this book is it almost looks like one of those typical like poses, like, you know, where you're giving away like, you know, signed autographs, and it is autographed. And the autograph says, "Very truly yours, Clark Kent," and then in brackets, Superman. So it's a kind of a comic that reveals Superman's identity. It's very interesting that way. This was a 7.0 that sold, and it sold from my comic shop actually for $7,750. Massive sale. This book had just sold back in August this year for $6,999. So it's up 10% from that previous record. So just a really strong sale for this book. There are actually 256 of these on the census, and 189 of them are universal blue labels. So that is it for this week. Those are the hottest comics of the week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are one of the owners of any of these books, tell me in the comments below. What did you think of the list? Tell me in the comments below. And thanks again for watching. Bye for now.